In the heart of an ancient forest, two souls met by chance. Their connection as unexpected as it was powerful. But in the world bound by rules and secrets, love is never simple. This is a tale of love, raw, pure, and tragically fleeting. Welcome to Echoing Tales. Tonight's story is titled Ashes of My Heart. I've never stayed in one place for long. My parents always moved us from town to town, mansion to mansion, as if we were chasing something, or perhaps running from it. I never questioned them. The constant uprooting left me without friends, without connections, only shifting landscapes. I didn't mind. Solitude became a companion, and in the quiet, I found comfort. The forests, though, there was something different about them, something primal. The raw energy of the towering trees, the haunting sounds of animals, the way the wind whispered through the leaves. It was here I felt most alive. I wandered for hours, drinking in the pulse of nature. It was where I belonged. My parents allowed this freedom under one condition: never cross the boundary they had marked. The boundary separated our world from theirs, a tribe that lived deeper within the heart of the forest. My parents had spoken of them in whispers, always with a flicker of fear in their eyes. They don't like outsiders, they'd say. They have their ways, and we must respect them. The tribe was unlike any other. They were one with the forest, as if born from the very soil beneath their feet. They revered the forest, not as a place to be conquered, but as a living being, wild and unpredictable. They embraced both its beauty and its cruelty, understanding that the darkness it held was just as sacred as the light. In time, they had learned to protect themselves from the forest's darker side. Old rituals and hidden rites kept the shadows at bay, marking them as people who had not only survived the wild but had tamed it in a way only they could. But then I met Sarah. I first saw her one humid afternoon. She was perched high in a tree gathering berries. Her hair was wild, dancing in the breeze, and her long skirt swayed as she moved gracefully from branch to branch. As I passed below, she suddenly tossed a handful of berries down at me, catching me off guard. I looked up startled, and there she was, laughing. That laugh was unlike anything I had ever heard, a mixture of joy and mischief, the sound echoing through the forest like music. For the next few days, we encountered each other more often, almost as if fate had arranged it. I'd find her sitting by a stream, braiding flowers, or she'd spot me attempting to climb a rocky slope. She never spoke to me at first, only smiled or laughed when I struggled, but there was an understanding between us. Slowly, we began talking. She was different, free in a way I'd never known. Her people didn't care for the constraints of outsiders. While I spoke about my travels and the old mansion I called home, she told me about her tribe stories of spirits that lived in the woods and ancient traditions that were still followed. We were both intrigued by each other's lives, and soon meeting Sarah became the highlight of my walks. Every day, the space between us seemed to shrink. Our hands would brush as we walked side by side, sharing stories. One evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, she reached for my hand. The touch sent a spark through me. We stood there, holding hands, watching the sun disappear behind the trees. Our world reduced to just the two of us. There was an unspoken attraction pulling us closer each time we met, something neither of us acknowledged out loud, but both felt deeply. But in the back of my mind, my parents' warning echoed. This tribe doesn't mix with outsiders. It was the rule. The rule I was dangerously close to breaking. Yet, every time I thought of staying away, my feet led me back to her, as if I had no choice in the matter. If you're enjoying the story so far and want to support our new channel, please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing this video. Your encouragement means a lot to us as we bring you more mysterious and thrilling tales. Now, to continue with the story. One day, as Sarah and I sat by the river bank, she was showing me how to catch fish, her laughter echoing over the water. That was when my parents found us. They greeted Sarah calmly, though their smiles felt strained. She didn't notice the tension, but I did. When I returned home, they were waiting for me, stern expressions etched on their faces. "Stay away from her," they said, more serious than ever. I tried to listen to them, to stay away from Sarah, but I couldn't stop thinking about her. The way her eyes lit up when she talked about the forest, the way her laugh made the world feel less lonely. After days of staying home, unable to resist the pull of her memory, I decided to return to the woods. As I approached her usual spot, there she was, waiting. Her smile hid anger. "Where have you been?" she asked, her voice tinged with hurt. I apologized and she quickly forgave me. She was too eager to share something dangerous. "There's a festival in my tribe happening next week," she said. "It's for the boys who come of age. When they turn 17, they have to jump from the highest cliff into the ocean and swim back. It's supposed to prove their manhood." She spat the words with disdain. "But it's stupid," her frustration bubbling to the surface. "Why is it always the boys? I'm better than them in the forest. In the ocean, I can swim faster than any of them." Her eyes gleamed with a fiery determination, and I knew what she was going to say before she even said it. "I'm going to do it," she declared. "I'm going to jump and I'm going to prove to them that I'm just as strong." "No," I said, fear tightening around my heart. The cliff she was talking about stood at the edge of the tribal lands, not deep within, but far enough to remain off limits to me. It loomed over a narrow bay with the ocean lapped gently against the rocky shoreline. On one side, the cliff rose steeply from the forest, its jagged edges making the boundary between the tribe's domain and the world beyond. This side was forbidden, sacred to the tribe who performed their ancient rites in its shadow. Across the bay, the land curved in a crescent shape, forming a natural U around the water. The distance between the cliffs wasn't vast. I could clearly see the opposite side where I stood, outside the boundaries of the tribal lands, yet close enough to watch. Even if I could watch from a distance, I couldn't protect her if something went wrong. "It's too dangerous," I warned. But she wouldn't listen. Finally, she reluctantly agreed, and for that moment, I felt a sense of relief. But the next day, when we met again, her resolve had only hardened. "I'm doing it," she said, her voice leaving no room for argument. I knew I couldn't stop her, so I agreed to watch from the opposite side of the cliff, outside the boundaries of her tribal land. The towering cliff, the jagged rocks below, and the violent waves sent chills down my spine. The jump terrified me. I stood on the far cliff, heart pounding as I watched her climb. She moved with the grace of someone who had spent her life in the wild, but the height of the cliff and the fury of the waves below made my stomach twist in knots. My breath caught as she reached the top, her figure silhouetted against the darkening sky. There was no hesitation in her. She was ready to leap, to defy the limits placed on her. Before I could even open my mouth to beg her not to do it, she jumped. Her body arched gracefully through the air, disappearing into the turbulent water below. I rushed to the edge, my heart pounding. The water seemed endless, swallowing her whole, and she didn't resurface. A surge of panic shot through me. In that moment, no rule mattered. Nothing was more important than Sarah. I jumped, plunging into the forbidden waters. The icy current gripped me, But I fought through, searching the depths until I saw her, floating just below the surface. Her body, suspended in the water, looked ethereal, as if she were a part of the river itself. I wrapped my arms around her limp form and pulled her to the shore, collapsing beside her. My hands trembled as I laid her down. Her face was pale, her eyes closed. I leaned over her, willing her to breathe, to open her eyes. When she finally did, relief flooded through me. But her face shattered any hope I had. Fear filled her eyes. She wasn't looking at me. She was staring at the monster I had become. In the tribal lands, I couldn't hide. The ancient spell that protected this place had stripped away the human mask I wore, revealing the truth I had always kept hidden. I wasn't like her. I wasn't human. My skin, once smooth and warm to her touch, had transformed into a cold, jagged stone. Wings dark and twisted unfurled from my back, casting long shadows in the fading light. My face, grotesque and terrifying, was the reflection of the creature I truly was, a being born not of this world, but of shadows, bound to a life of disguise. But my heart was human. My emotions were real. I loved Sarah, a love as pure as any human's, if not more. Yet, in her eyes, I saw none of that. Only terror, only disgust. I had always known her tribe was different, mystical, tied to the forest in ways I could only marvel at. Their ancestors had cast a powerful spell over these lands, a protective barrier against beings like me. My parents had warned me, pleaded with me to stay away, because the moment I crossed the boundary, my disguise would fall away. No creature like me could walk their lands and remain hidden. The punishment was clear. I would burn, piece by piece, until there was nothing left of me but ash. I tried to speak, to tell her it was still me, but the words came out as a guttural growl, monstrous and foreign. The spell had begun its cruel work, and I could feel the fire starting deep within me, spreading through my body an unstoppable force. And all the while, Sarah screamed, her voice filled with the kind of horror that cuts through soul. She couldn't bear to look at me. She covered her face with her hands as if to shield herself from the sight of the creature standing before her. My heart broke. I wanted her to see beyond the stone, beyond the monstrous wings and twisted face. I wanted her to remember the boy who had laughed with her, who had held her hand as they watched the sunset, the boy who had loved her more deeply than she would ever know. But there was nothing in her eyes now, nothing but revulsion. The flames began to lick at my skin, and I knew my time was running out. I reached for her, though I knew she wouldn't reach back. My hand, already turning to ash, fell short, disintegrating into the wind. I could feel my body dissolving, slowly, agonizingly, as the ancient spell claimed me. Each piece of me that turned to dust carried with it a fragment of the love I had held so fiercely. As the fire consumed me, I looked at her one last time, hoping, praying that some sort of her would remember me, the boy behind the beast. But all I saw was her turning away, unable to face the truth of what I was. I burned for her, not from the spell, but from the heartbreak that tore me apart. And as the last of me was carried off into the wind, I whispered a silent, unspoken plea to the world. Remember me. But I knew, even then, that I would be forgotten. The boy she had once known was gone, erased by the curse of the forest, and all that remained was a tragic echo of a love that had never been meant to survive. A love, like me, lost to the shadows forever. This is an original work of fiction created by Echoing Tales, a brand new channel blending suspense and mystery. Join us as we unravel a story shrouded in eerie echoes and spine chilling twists every week. As we're just starting out, we need your support. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Please like the video and hit the bell icon to help us keep creating more captivating stories. Until we meet again in the next tale, stay vigilant. And before you sleep tonight, remember to take one last look into the darkness.